This is a mountain biome, but if things are looking a little bit strange, that's because we've spawned it on the singular biome mode, and that singular biome that we're looking at right now is the Deep Dark. Are you confused? Then let me explain. This is the brand new 1.19 snapshot, the first sneak peek and look at the brand new Deep Dark biome and everything which is involved with it. The Deep Dark biome is now added. Ancient city structures also now spawn within this biome. There's a new mob effect called Mob Darkness, which also applies to other things, which we'll cover a little bit later. A new enchantment, which is Swift Sneak, which is used for stealth, which is extremely useful for being within the Deep Dark. There's also the Warden being added, which we're going to take a close look at, and you can avoid this through stealth. This is through preventing Skulk Shriekers from being tripped. Shriekers will emit loud vibrations, summoning the Warden. Skulk sensors detect vibrations and they emit redstone signals. You can only collect these sensors through mining them with Silk Touch while you're being quiet, so if you want to obtain the block, this is the only means of doing so. Skulk Catalysts spread Skulk everywhere and they glow in the dark. Skulk Vein generates around these catalysts spreading blocks and is basically like glow lichen. So let's take a look at the actual Deep Dark, shall we? Because this is quite confusing. This isn't actually the Deep Dark, but if you spawn a singular biome, there has to be a surface, and the Deep Dark, well, it spawns underground. So let's fix that. Let's go deep underground into the cavern system and take a look at the real Deep Dark. So this is the Deep Dark, okay? But this is more specifically ancient cities which will now spawn in the Deep Dark. So let's first go over the Deep Dark with a basic information spree. So the Deep Dark is the biome which spawns at the lowest level, okay? This spawns deep underground. The only mobs which will be housed within this biome are Wardens. This is the darkest biome there is, and Skulk blocks will cover all of the floor of this biome. As you can see, it looks pretty cool. So let's get on to information about these ancient cities more specifically, because these are pretty awesome, and we've been waiting to get a closer look at these ever since the reveal at Minecon Live. If you thought I was going to play this in survival mode, well, you're very wrong, because I'm definitely not going to walk through the halls of these cities in survival mode. Maybe when I have to test a few things and show them you. Okay, so as you can see, it's very hard to see things. That's actually also first considering that we are actually on brightness level of bright. If you turn it all the way down, well, I feel even more sorry for you because you're not going to be able to see a thing. Torches are extremely important here for that exact reason. Now, the Skulk Sensors and Skulk Shriekers, which we're going to take a closer look at with the blocks later, they will basically guard all the treasures here. So those hidden chests, which you may have seen on the trailer, those are what house that new enchantment, which is a boot enchant, which I mentioned slightly into the introduction. So you want to avoid those blocks if you want to get the loot. Mobs cannot actually spawn in these cities, okay? So the only mobs which you're going to encounter here are the Wardens themselves in the Deep Dark, which means things like skeletons and zombies aren't going to find a way around here, which kind of decreases the level of risk, but the Wardens obviously replace that risk because they're extremely terrifying, and if one of them catches up to you, it's not going to be very fun. So here's a few of the blocks in action which have spawned, and you'll also see reinforced deep slate blocks which spawn here too. These, I believe, are not obtainable in survival mode, but you can use them for decoration. If I just go into creative mode, we can actually spawn these, just to give you an idea of what blocks I'm talking about. These look absolutely awesome. You could use these for building. They look like spines of some kind of dinosaur or creature or dragon, and they look really cool. These are really nice new looking blocks which definitely do fit into this whole ecosystem and its style. So if we go into F3, we can see exactly what we're looking at. So this is the Skulk Catalyst. So basically any mobs within, I believe, an 8-block radius of this thing will make this block bloom, and that's talking about mobs which also die within its radius. That will basically pulse this block, and all those mobs which are in its radius won't actually drop XP if they're nearby this within that set of blocks. So I'm not sure if I can show an example of it while we're in creative. Let's just spawn a zombie, which is not actually supposed to spawn down here like we said before. You can see that has actually pulsed, okay? And when it pulsed, you can also see the Warden has actually come out of the ground. So that was enough to actually summon the Warden, which is absolutely terrifying. This is the new mob, okay? So I just want to show you the Skulk Catalyst in action first, but we have inadvertently actually spawned the Warden himself, which is pretty convenient because now we have him and we can cover him. but he will also despawn in 60 seconds, which I'll touch on a little bit later. Okay, that was the Catalyst. So let's move on to this block. This is the Skulk Shrieker. Now, before we get on to the Skulk Shrieker, I want to mention something a little bit interesting. Now, if you place wool on Skulk blocks, okay, this is just an example. I'm not actually showing you an effect, but this will actually prevent the occlusion of vibrations, okay? So wool can definitely be your friend, and it definitely has an application when you're in the deep dark, which is pretty interesting. So it's actually the Shrieker 2 which can summon the Warden, because this is the block which actually emits really loud vibrations, okay? And you can actually trip this block, which will in turn summon the Warden, which has now disappeared, and I believe he has actually despawned, unless he's walked down here, but I believe he's... Oh, okay, there he is, unless that's another one. Now, this is what summons the Warden, okay, through the vibrations. So it's best when you're nearby this block to actually sneak around it or try and avoid it, because otherwise you're going to trip it, which is obviously not going to work out your way, which you're going to see why a little bit later. So let's actually move on to the Warden now that we've actually summoned this guy. So if we attack him, you can see he's not just going to die in a few strikes, because he's actually extremely tough. Now, these guys are going to wander throughout the deep dark and kind of trawl the hallways and just look extremely menacing and terrifying. But even though they look scary, they do actually have a few blunders to them. They're not all powerful, they're not extremely just OP, although they kind of are. They're actually blind, okay? They're basically diverted through the effects of these blocks themselves. So triggering these blocks are going to affect how the Warden behaves. It has some fairly complex AI sets, okay? So the behavior of this mob is all dependent on which blocks are activating and through its sensors and basically perception of sound. And also another thing to note is if you collide with a mob, obviously when you're in survival mode, it will actually let it detect you too. So anything through touch upon collision or through sound will alert the Warden. Now you may think there's just one of these guys and you just summon him. No, the problem is there's actually Wardens which are everywhere in this biome, okay? So in the deep dark, Wardens are everywhere. They live underground and you saw them emerge earlier, and if you trip one of these blocks and it notices your vibrations, it will actually emerge. So you're not amongst one Warden, you're amongst an absolute ton of these guys. They will just only appear if you basically disturb one of them. So that's one thing to consider when you're thinking about whether to be stealthy or not around here. Increased vibrations will actually anger them more, so more sound that you create and the more blocks you trip will actually increase its anger level and make it even more dangerous. Now the reason why I said before that it despawned is actually because if we don't alert this thing, so that means also me not attacking it with the sword, if we don't alert this thing for 60 seconds after it emerges, or we basically lose it and it doesn't attack us, it will basically bury into the ground and despawn, okay? So you can actually make it disappear through this method, but it will also respond to projectiles, okay? So for an example, a projectile being something like an arrow, which will also make it extremely angry, and you can see it's burrowed out through here. So if you hit it with things like arrows, it will become extremely angry. Now, one thing to note is what I didn't touch on before is the Shrieker. You can see there's actually a value on the right side where it says shrieking true or shrieking false, okay? So if you actually activate this thing, it will actually basically turn to true, okay? So let me just maybe kill a zombie or something. And you have to actually activate it, but if you do, it will say shrieking true. So that's a new property you can see on the F3 menu. The scary thing about this is not only is the Warden extremely powerful, but if you have a shield equipped, it can actually break the shield and make it completely useless. So if this thing punches the shield, which I'm holding right now, the shield, I believe, will break. I haven't put it into effect, but it will basically be useless. Now, allegedly, I've heard that the health value of these mobs are also extremely high, making it even more high in HP than something like the Wither or the Ender Dragon. So I'm pretty sure this is the strongest mob to date, which is why you have to avoid it in stealth, because it's basically the toughest mob so far in the game. So it's kind of like a boss, yet it doesn't have a boss health bar, because you're technically not supposed to fight it. And another reason why you're not supposed to fight it is it doesn't actually drop anything. These guys don't actually have any kind of loot, so they're not going to yield a loot table whatsoever. So there's literally no upside of actually trying to kill one of these. Even if you're using like mods to have insanely powerful weapons, it's pretty useless. Let me just equip some let's just equip some full netherite, and let's just show you how powerful these guys are in reality, and we'll also see how they affect the shield. This is just so you can see their actual natural behavior, because I've kind of shown you it in effect, or basically told you about it, but I haven't actually shown it you in demonstration. So we're just going to go into survival mode, and you can see we have the gold hearts which are activated, and we're just going to walk around and run around, okay? We're not going to care what we're doing, we're just going to basically trip all these blocks. And you can see now there's actually a darkness effect, and the Warden is being summoned, and the darkness effect basically ignores the torches. And this guy is going to run at me, and he's instantly going to strike like 3 hearts, and I can barely see him, okay? And when he used that shield, it blocked once, but then he hit it and it was entirely useless. And now everything around me is extremely dark because I've just spawned on the same blocks which activated before. And it has this new effect here which I want to talk about, which is the darkness effect. So this darkness effect will be applied when you walk over specific skulk blocks. And basically, this is extremely dangerous. The reason for this being dangerous is because you can't see anything. And I walked over the skulk catalyst and it applies the darkness to me. Okay, so let's talk about the darkness effect. Even though I walked over the catalyst, it's the Skulk Shrieker and also the Warden which uses this new darkness effect. And I've also summoned the Warden, and it's going to bury... Is it going to bury underground? Okay, no, it's going to do his roar and then charge at me again. So the Warden and the Shrieker use this new darkness effect, and basically what it does is it lowers your gamma levels so low, as you can see, that it basically is a level of moody brightness, and kind of even lower because we can't even see a single thing apart from the glowing parts of the Warden itself, which is trying to rip me to shreds yet again, which is a pretty unfair spawn, to be honest. But this isn't a normal deep dark either. This is a strange deep dark mountain biome. So this afflicts the player when they're nearby, and it works in a pulsing effect. So this means that darkness will creep into light sources nearby, which is why those torches were pretty useless before. And you can see there's also yet another Warden which is going to summon, but I didn't want to face that guy. One interesting thing I want to try is, does Milk remove this effect? Okay, Milk does remove the effect. So Milk, which removes all negative effects in game, does actually work on darkness. So that's interesting to note, although I don't see carrying like 20 buckets of milk in your inventory being useful, because every time you walk near those blocks you're going to activate darkness again. But the fact that we can remove it is super helpful in terms of our showcase. So torches are super important when the Warden moves nearby, but when we have darkness it makes them extremely weak and we can't see a thing. Now, one interesting thing is if we go into options and you go down to accessibility, which is something you don't always actually go into, I really never touch this effect, you can see the darkness effect is added here too. So this controls how dark the effect actually is and how dark it gets when a Warden or Skulk Shrieker gives this effect to you. But as you can note, what it says at the end, it doesn't actually affect the fog distance of the effect whatsoever. But this is something which you can change if you want to modify how dark the darkness effect actually is. Okay, so the final thing which we haven't covered is the boot enchant. So let's take a look at that. Okay, another Warden. Yeah, now this guy can't touch me because I'm in creative mode. So he is absolutely weak, and you can tell how annoyed he is from the fact that he can't do a thing. So let's move on. So we're going to place down in Armorville, and I want to show you the new enchant, okay? So like I noted at the start, this is called Swift Sneak. And you'll see that it comes in 3 different stages: Swift Sneak 1, 2, and 3. So we can apply it just to a few different tiers of armor, from gold, diamond to netherite. So we're going to apply obviously the weakest to gold, and the second strongest to the diamond, and obviously the best to the netherite, which we can do in an enchanting table based on the enchantment level we have. I will apply all of these, but I'm not really going to compare the speed too much. You can kind of see it in effect because I'm not really sure what the speed levels are, but I'm going to wear them all and you can see how fast they actually perform. You can see it doesn't describe the actual effect itself, but I'm going to tell you exactly what it does. So basically this is used as kind of like a stealth effect, and it's extremely useful when we're in the deep dark for actually moving around, because down here, oh, we found diamond. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Down here, you basically need to sneak, okay? If you don't want to trip any of the traps and summon the Warden, which is something you actually want to avoid doing, then you will need to sneak around. But sneaking is extremely slow. While using this enchant, you can basically be more mobile. And you can see, obviously, the higher the tier of the enchant, the faster we move. So basically, in sneak mode, this increases your sneak speed, which is extremely helpful, because then we can kind of go in prone mode or sneak mode and just move extremely fast through the ancient city without triggering any mobs, which is what you're going to want to do. So let me just show you the last tier. And you can see the number 3, the Swift Sneak number 3, we actually move extremely fast. This is kind of just like walking, right? Or at least nearly like walking. It's actually really mobile. So this is super helpful. Also, these candles actually look really cool, and we can right click to turn them off and basically fan the flame, which I don't know why you'd want to do that, because you want a light source in this place. Now, one thing to note, okay, is not only do these blue soul flames or soul fire pits look absolutely awesome, but how you actually find these is you don't actually craft them. There are actually chests within these ancient cities, and if you do happen to find them, if you are lucky enough, they will actually have loot in them. Now, the shift sneak enchant, which I just showed you, which was the swift sneak, that's only found in chests in the deep dark ancient cities. It's basically the rare loot which you're going to find from plundering this place, and it's the thing which actually attracts you here and makes it worthwhile exploring. So if you want to get this enchant, you're going to have to find one of those loot chests hidden in these ancient cities, which are absolutely huge, pretty hard to navigate. You're going to need a ton of torches to actually get around this place. If you can traverse the whole thing whilst avoiding detection, you will eventually come upon some kind of chest which you can obviously loot. So this is how you will obtain this, but one thing to actually note as well for anyone who doesn't know is you can't actually pair this specific enchant with others. So that means things like Frostwalker, Soul Speed or Depth Strider can't be combined with the Swift Sneak, so you can't use those at the same time. But I'm sure there will be mods in the future which lets you combine these enchants, which would make for some extremely overpowered boots. Now, I've actually had the liberty of just flying around there, as you could just see, and we've actually found some of these chests. So I can kind of show you the examples of some loot tables from these chests that you'll find. So we have some bones, we have healing potions, candles, snowballs, random sculk blocks, and sculk catalysts. Now, I'm not sure if these catalysts will spawn in here when it's finally released, because I believe you need a Silk Touch tool to actually remove those when you actually see them spawning. So I don't know why they're spawning in the loot table, but it's interesting just to have a look. Like, the sensors are spawning in here right now. We have enchant books like Unbreaking, and basically just themed blocks from the actual update itself, which is pretty cool. So this is what the areas look like which you will actually find chests in, just so you have an idea of what you're actually looking for. So we're just going to quickly put Silk Touch on this pick over there, and I'm not sure if we can do this before the warden kills me, but you can actually mine these things with Silk Touch. Okay, there we go. Okay, I've done it. So you can see I now have a Sculk Shrieker block. So that's just an example of mining with a Silk Touch. And now I'm just going to basically let fate catch up to me and let this warden finish me. So this is basically the whole Deep Dark update on the new 1.19 snapshot. You do need to download this manually, although I'm sure some modded launchers will let you just install it with one click. I installed it manually. I will put the link below, which will show you all the patch notes for this update, and it will show you how to actually install this and get it running for yourself. This is a super cool update, and I think 1.19 is going to be really awesome. I really like the features, and actually seeing them in effect is really cool. I think once 1.19 releases, the modding capabilities are going to be absolutely awesome. I can't wait for what all you guys are going to create in relation to the Deep Dark itself, extensions to the biome, new structures. I'm just really excited to see what the community are going to do with this update, and I'm definitely going to do some top 10s and mod showcases to cover some of the new upgrades and features that people are going to create. If I missed anything from the showcase in terms of features in relation to the patch notes, do let me know below, and also tell me if there's anything which I did actually forget or miss, like I mentioned, or any cool facts which I didn't know about the update. I do want to hear your thoughts, what you think they should change, or what you think they should add, or what needs to be different before release, because I want to see people's feedback on this update and how Mojang has actually been dealing with 1.19. As always, do leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.